Hey, I am beyond excited. I feel like I'm like with a friend that has never met me that I feel like I've known for years.
Yes, you have. You have
So,
known for a long time, probably. And
yeah,
I share everything. So,
yeah, it's only one of the many things I love about watching your podcasts.
oh,
And
thank you.
and our daughter just moved to Wisconsin, so
Oh,
it's getting closer.
yes. Where are
So,
you Zooming from?
Maryland,
Okay. I
yeah,
lived in Virginia,
right. Which part?
Richmond,
Oh, okay.
Glen
Okay.
Ellen. Yeah.
Hmm.
We were out there for 5 years. I loved the coast. I loved
Yeah.
that area. It was lovely. The weather was lovely. But all our family was here. So
Right. Well,
we ended up, when you're giving I just got an email, just a second.
sure.
About the meeting. So I want to make sure that wouldn't be requiring a passcode.
I didn't need to put in a passcode.
No. Somebody can't get in, so let me check here. I didn't set one up, so please try again. Yeah, Zoom is requiring a passcode. No, I didn't set a passcode up. I just said, forget it. If some weird person wants to come join a knitting Zoom, that's gonna be in, right?
Like, exactly.
Hi, Pam.
Hello, Cori.
Where are you coming from?
Richmond, Virginia.
Oh, we were just talking about Richmond. I love Richmond. I lived in Glen Ellen, out near the Short Pump area.
I remember, yeah, you gave a talk to our James River Guild last year.
I have such fond memories.
Yeah.
Hi, Pat. Hi, Diane. And another Diane. I'm hoping, I have an email from someone that they couldn't get in. So I'm hoping that something's not messed up, because I don't want people to be frustrated. So I'm just watching my email for a second to see if gosh, here's another one. There's should not be. I didn't one.
Whoops.
Please try again.
What the hell?
And let me know. Others have been able to join. Oh, I just don't want people to be frustrated that if they can't get in because they don't know. Should not need a password. We'll see why that is. Did you guys just go to Zoom and start?
I went from Ravelry, from the link that you had on Ravelry, and that was fine.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Okay. Please try the link on Ravelry. I just hate that though, in that they're not on Ravelry. But Ravelry. I don't know why people would have trouble. That's why I didn't set up a password, so it would be easier. So we didn't have to fuss with it.
You do know what day today is, right?
Yes, I do. I wonder if I can go out. and see if there's a password that Zoom set up. There's 3 people that can't get in.
Hmm.
So let me go to my Zoom app on my phone quick. Sorry, you guys, just hang in there. We don't want people to not to get in if they can't get in. Yeah, I should not read. There's not even one on there. So is it happening from the newsletter? Is that what's causing the problem?
Hi, Cori. The regular link from Ravelry is fine. The link from the newsletter is the one that's a problem.
Thank you. I had someone check it this morning for me and it worked. So that's really frustrating because I sent her the newsletter and I asked her to check it. So that's really a bummer when you go to the time, you go and she said, yep, it's working. Okay, so I'm going to go grab the link from Ravelry for everybody and email it to these 3 people. Would you guys like to just chat for a minute amongst yourselves?
Sure.
I don't want to be disrespectful of those of you that are here. Let me see if this is going to work. If I copy and paste.
So where's everybody from? I'm from near Baltimore in Maryland.
I'm not far from you. I'm in Richmond, Virginia. This is
Okay.
Pam. Sorry, I don't have my picture on right now.
Okay.
I'm eating lunch.
Oh.
I want you to look at me eating.
I'm from
Fair.
outside of Greensboro, North Carolina, in Brown Summit.
Oh, cool.
I'm in Houston, Texas, originally from Scotland, but I've been here nearly 30 years.
Wow.
And I still knit in Houston.
That's dedication.
I stopped it for a while, but I started again once I got grandchildren, and now I can't stop.
Mm-hmm.
Pat, did you say you were from near Greensboro?
Mm-hmm. Outside, we're probably maybe about 7 miles outside in Brown Summit.
Yeah, our son lives in Franklinville, which is south in North Carolina. Randolph County.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm from just outside of Eau Claire, Wisconsin.
Okay.
Oh.
Altoona. It's like if Eau Claire was big enough to have a suburb, we would be it.
So
It
what's
sounds
so what's Eau Claire near? What
We're about 75 miles from the Minneapolis airport.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
okay. We're straight east.
Okay, I'm typing as fast as I can.
And I'm Diane, and I live in Minneapolis, actually pretty near the Minneapolis airport.
Ah.
Hi, Diane. Hi. Who else has joined? Jessica. I
Yeah.
want to say hi to everyone here, but I want to also get people logged in. Well, I won't make that mistake next time.
Oh, darn, you mean we have to sit here and knit? What a terrible thing.
Such a bummer on a Friday morning. Well, at least we have some decent weather, huh, Diane?
Yeah, it's beautiful. So beautiful.
Well, it's raining here, but that's okay.
Well, guess what? It's hot in Texas.
Oh, No.
It feels like July already. I mean,
Oh, no.
I walked at 7 this morning and it was hot.
Ugh,
Oh,
I'm not looking forward to those days.
no, me neither.
Means I get to stay inside and knit.
Yes, true.
work. Oh, so frustrating for people. It's like there's another person out there that can't get in. Okay, then we're gonna stop.
Cori, I sent you an email too, so just ignore that because
Oh, okay, thank you.
one of them was me.
Okay, well, I'm just responding to every single person twice here to make sure that they, so I don't want to not have it work. Gosh, and I sent it to someone, and it's just so frustrating when, you know, you try to do it right. And she got back to me and she said, yes, it works. It's not asking for a password. Is that accurate? And I said, yes, I set it up without a password. And now it's asking for a password. How could it make any more?
Well, people are joining, so that's good.
This is a text message from a friend.
Hi, Cori. This is Cher. I was able to get on with the Ravelry link.
Thank you.
Yes.
I don't know why. I double checked the newsletter, sent it to someone this morning, and she checked it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, and there's no password necessary. And I said, yep, I set it up without a password. And then now, and you're not the only one. Yeah, they've had 4 people.
Oh, yeah. The email one is asking for a
And
password, but
I
then.
would give everyone one if I could find one, but there isn't one. I went out and looked, I'm like, there's no, I didn't set one up. There's no, I wonder if, just a second, if I can edit it in here. Oh, there is one here. Okay, that's not helpful to people, but they set one up, 8595. Well, too late now. Okay. Go back. Get back to everybody here. Oh my goodness. I lost it. Ah! Oh, here it is. Go. The link from the newsletter is not working. Well, we'll fix that for next time. Next Friday, we'll do better. Tell me what you're knitting. What did you choose to knit on? Pat, you want to start? You were the first one on this morning.
Oh, sure. I was just trying to put my state on here, and it looks like I've made a big mess of it, but it seems like that's the theme. So I just cast on the Concord socks.
Yep.
This yarn I got at the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival, which was last weekend in the pouring down 4 inches of rain, mud up to your ankles, but still wonderful. So
yeah, I thought, I looked at that and I saw, oh my gosh, I haven't been to that for years, but I remember it being so hot one year when I went.
It can be,
and
yeah.
Then, then this weekend they just had mud. It just looked
I'm on the vendor committee, so I was there all day Friday while the vendors were checking in, and we were just it was unbelievably muddy Friday and Saturday, but Sunday it didn't rain, so and it was good to be back anyway. So that's what I'm doing.
Pat, did that affect attendance, do you think?
The attendance was not as much as it has
No,
been,
just watching
but
the
the
live.
vendors did really, really well.
Oh,
I
good.
think everybody was just so happy to be touching and looking and,
Yeah.
you know, and Maryland is a very agricultural festival. So there's lots of sheep events, many of which were canceled, but I didn't hear any of the vendors unhappy.
Oh, good.
So yeah, so it's great.
Checking Instagram to make, 2 messages over here. Oh, nope, that's okay. Nope, that's okay. So. Okay, good. So anybody else want to share what project they chose, what they're working on?
I will.
Okay.
I'm doing the Concord socks also.
Oh.
And the yarn I got that I'm using is a Cascade Heritage, and then some hand dyed.
Oh, nice.
That I did, and so I'm doing it as the little bit of the rib with the hand dyed, the heels and toes with the hand dyed.
Oh, Janet, you made it. Okay. Janet, we're not sure. I double checked the link this morning before I sent the newsletter out, and it worked, and with no password, and I don't know why it's not working, but you're not the only one. There were several people who couldn't get on. So I apologize, Janet, but you're a friend, so I know you'll forgive me.
This is the difference between Cori and me. If that happened to me, I would have cried and given up. I watched Cori, and she does not. She just, like, she has that growth mindset where she says, well, let's just figure out the problem. And I shut down and never do it again. And Cori just embraces it like, okay, let's learn. So
I
admire you greatly.
I emailed several people back and said, it should work. It should work. I'm not sure why it's not working. So I'm really hoping that people, I don't know why the newsletter didn't work. I double checked it this morning before I sent it. So, okay, we're just sharing what we're knitting. And everybody shared where they were from. Janet is local to me. She's in my knitting group. So I know Janet. So she texted me. So I was like, oh, well, that's easy. I can text her and say, hey, did you use the Ravelry link then, Janet?
No, I used Zoom with your passcode and it worked. Yep.
I didn't set up that password. And so I don't, and it's my house address. So I don't know how, like, a password is usually like nine numbers, right? Like on Zoom. And this is 4 in it's my house number. And I did not do that. When I went out to look, because I was like, I didn't set up a password. And so there was one there. I'm not sure why. Anyway, so tell me what else you're knitting. Who's knitting? Who hasn't shared?
I have one more comment about mine. Is I had to cast it on last night because for the last 2 years I've done where Fridays are Finish It Friday, and I can only work on works in progress or things that I'm finishing. I had to do it before midnight last night.
Because you couldn't bend that rule.
Right. I'm like, nope, that's a slippery slope.
Oh, I've had rules like that, and I have yet to keep them. I had stashed down Sunday where I was in a blanket that I was work on Sundays, and I've tried so many things. I'm just not good at those kind of,
I've stuck to it, and and so currently I only have 2 unfinished knitting projects that are like in the they're not in the whips, they're like they've been set aside, only 2, and then 3 rug hooking projects.
Good for you. Good for you.
Like it really, I mean, in comparison to what I had, that's really good.
Yeah, in comparison to what I have currently, that's really good. All right, Janet, what are you working on?
Oh, I love this pattern. I'll show it to you. I'm going to do the Concord pair socks again.
third one.
I just
Third
love that
one.
pattern. Aren't they? And they fit and they're so pretty.
Yeah,
So
that's
I'm
a
just going to do light
squishy-
blue.
It's a very squishy texture stitch. It
Mhm.
makes for a much squishier sock.
Mhm.
Yeah, that is. It is.
You're
a fun
talking
one.
about finished projects. I had a unfinished project somebody gave me years ago, and it was a baby Afghan. And so I put it on Cori's exchange, and somebody picked it up immediately, and I got it out of my closet. I was so happy. I didn't.
Hey.
I just mailed it away, and she sent me a picture of it. She finished it, and so I love the knitting exchange. Just kind of send things off, and somebody else finishes them.
Yeah, I need to work on the knitting exchange a bit harder and get more word out, because I saw someone on Instagram the other day, and I thought that's a perfect project for the knitting exchange. So I DM'd her, and then she had no idea, right? So I just need to get the word out about being able to get rid of things, yarn projects, patterns that are all bundled together, things that are, just sitting there waiting to be done. I just have high hopes that I will finish things. I don't have that sense that I will be unable to finish those things someday. Oh man, I have so many. All right, who else? What else is everybody knitting on today?
I haven't started, but I'm going to do the library cowl.
Oh,
I read the description and it said it's, after you've got the basics down and you can graduate to doing some texture. And even though I don't think of myself as a beginning knitter, I was very sick last year. And so I'm just now beginning to get back into knitting. So I thought that sounds perfect. And it looks so pretty.
yeah. It's just a sampler of stitches.
Yeah.
I did for the library knitters, because they only do knit and purl in their first class, and in their second class they get to pick one of 3 cowls, and so they can learn a slip stitch, they can learn a little cable stitch, or they can learn some yarn over, so a lace stitch. And those ladies took that class over and over and over again, and they pick one cowl each time because it's free, the class is free, and then they didn't have any more cowls to knit. I said, now the library has limited them. Because, you can't continue to take Cori's free classes forever and ever and keep coming back and asking her to design new patterns for you to learn new things. That group stuck together, though. There are 8 of them, and that's one of the first ones. I just wrote up quickly a sampler stitch, cowl for them, and it does work really nicely, and you learn 4 different stitches, and you can repeat the 4 stitches, the 4 sections or not, and then it doesn't even have much of a border on the edges. It's just simple. But yeah, actually, when I designed that pattern, one of my friends said, this will be one of your most popular patterns. And I was like, why? Like, I just picked out stitch patterns and put them in the round to help my library knitters. And then we took pictures in the library. You would not believe how many knitters knit in the library. They all chimed in, right? My knitting group meets at the library, so we're all going to knit this. It did become literally one of my most popular patterns, and I was shocked because it was so easy and simple for me to write up. I didn't require a lot of creativity or anything. So yeah, for sure. Okay, who else has not chimed in on what they're knitting on? Knitalong.
I'll share.
Okay.
Go for it, Pat.
Oh, no, go ahead. Oh, wait, it's fine.
I just was finishing a row. I'm doing the Legacy Park shawl. I'm Kara. I'm from Washington State. Came in late. I've actually made quite a bit of progress.
Yes, you have. Your rows haven't gotten long yet.
So I know. I'm like,
I am.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably.
I think I'm on row 112.
I am just starting, I just finished 108. So yes, we are in the similar spot. This is so simple. It's so easy to do the 14 rows in between the flowers. And the flower rows aren't hard, they're just slow because you got to do a little stitch across. But yeah, I'm really enjoying knitting it again because I had to get a brighter colorway. I told that story on the podcast, but if you haven't watched, this was a shawl for the shop hop, and they wanted an advanced beginner a shawl, crescent shawl. And when the lady who dyed the yarn in California sent it in February, she sent 4 sample colorways. That's the yarn I had to use, but they wanted her to pump up the color of the skeins. So I used a little more muted colorway in mine, and which was fine. It was pretty, but it got a little muddy. So when the new yarns came in for the shop hop, where they bought 300 and some skeins, I was like, oh, that's so much brighter. I need them. So I'm reknitting it just so that I can have it's looking really like it has a lot of purple in it on the screen, but it doesn't. It's mostly pink. Yeah, so it's a super simple shawl, design and pattern, but I'm really enjoying it. I sat at knitting group yesterday and I could, do all those stockinette rows because all you do is the same thing on the ends. Kara, what is anybody else doing the legacy part here? Kara, what did you think about? Oh, Pat. Okay, tell us.
I am, and I'm using stash. So I had the Mandela ombre.
Oh, that'll be lovely.
Which is kind of a pink and peach and kind of summery colors.
Yeah.
And it's nice. I'm having a problem with the 11 and 12 row.
Okay.
My count is off, and I guess what I don't understand, and I don't know, I'm struggling with it, is it says the notes as you make 3 stitches out of the yarn over, and it increases to 4 stitches. So, but then it says you have a total of a 6 increase, which I only have 4 in the increase. So I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
You have 4 on the right side row and 2 on the wrong side row.
Because at row 13 and 26 says each row of 11, 12 adds 6 stitches. I'm only adding 4.
Right. 4 on the right side, 2 on the wrong side. So every set of rows increases by 6. You're frozen. So we're having
on 11.
So on 11, you
only have 2 though, right? With the knit. Okay.
Pat, you're frozen again.
Yes, besides the knit yarn over knit, which
bummer.
Yeah.
Pat, you're gonna have to call me or email me, and then I'll talk you through it because we can't hear you. You're breaking up.
you're 2.
You must be
And then on 12 we are. Oh, sorry. Sorry.
No, it's not. I want to help.
Can you see me?
I can explain it, but I can't hear you're just breaking up terrible. You might want to log out of Zoom and log back
I'm
in.
sorry.
And then we'll see if we can't get a better connection for you.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was going to ask Sarah what she thought.
Thank
how do you feel about that opening?
Yeah, I know.
about that opening, I muted. It was just easy.
Okay, I'm sorry.
He's so delayed. We can't catch up.
Yeah.
Tell me about what you thought about the original setup row, the start of the.
Here.
Yeah.
I loved it. I first read it and I was like, okay, that's interesting that I've done that for toe up socks. And then I'm like, oh, okay, but it worked out and I got it on the first try. And because I've done garter tab starts before and they always look sloppy to me.
I hate a garter tab. I hate doing it. I know that's the way you need to start so you don't have a divot, but I hate a garter tab, right?
Yeah.
I hate Jenny's surprisingly stretchy cast on. I hate that cast on too. Like half of my stitches are always too loose. I don't do toe up socks for that reason because I didn't like that cast on. So then I switched to that other, what's the other cast on called?
Turkish.
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 Oh,
So I switched to that, which made my life easier, right? So I was so leery about starting this shawl that way, but I knew that if I could make it work and if people would at least attempt it, that it would be pretty. So I will try to hold it up for you guys, but it makes the top edge completely flat.
Oh.
You get the same stitch, the edge all the way across the very top. So it really does make, I don't know if I'm holding it close enough, but it really does make a beautiful, just I-cord edge across the top. And so
I loved it, Cori. And I like that it's like, kind of a ribbed border instead of a garter border. I just love it.
Yeah, well, you know me and garter. I'm just not a fan. Garter stitch is boring to me. I have to have something to do. I mean, I know people hate to purl, but I'd rather purl and feel like I've changed up even for my hands, right? Just that whole process of movement of your hands. So I'm just not a fan of garter. I just find it so boring. And it's a beautiful thing that we have to make things not roll. I totally get that. But I just think it makes everything look the same, right? All the shawls back in the day, all were garter stitch and they all had garter stitch edges. And it's just like, we got to do something different. I just need something that isn't just garter all the time. And I did prayer shawls in garter stitch for years. I would knit garter stitch prayer shawls. And I think it's kind of like pizza for me. I ate so much in college that I couldn't eat it for a while.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Yes.
That they ate so much because they loved it so much that then they couldn't. It's just like, I can't do garter right now. Maybe I'll come back in love with it at some point, but not now. So what yarn are you using, Kara?
Using Lolo Did It in her Guernsey Sport. And this is a special colorway she did. It's called Secret Garden. We read the book for book club and she made this special colorway for it. So it's the first time I've used this base. It's gorgeous. I love it. So, and I'm really alternating skeins.
When the yarn store chose sport over fingering, just because it's something different, right? I'm not going to do another fingering weight crescent shawl. It does grow a little bit faster. I know tons of people don't have sport in their stash. And there aren't a lot of indie dyers who have sport weight that they even dye, right? So I did put a link to this indie dyer, this speckled finch, in the pattern for this shawl because she has a bunch of sport weight dyed up in her shop. And so that would be somewhere where someone could get a hand dyed sport weight if they wanted to. I just think that it has been fun to work through. I did do an update to the pattern though, for those of you. I did do an update this week because I got a question from someone saying, could you do a link to the star stitch, which is knit 3 together, yarn over, knit 3 together in one stitch. And to me, that instruction made perfect sense, right? Knit 3 together, yarn over, knit 3 together in the same stitch. But after the fact, I was like, well, of course someone would, who's a visual learner, who has never done that before, would want to know how to do it. So I was going to make a video and I thought, oh, I'll just check YouTube first. And sure enough, there was a gal out there who had a 2-minute video on how to do knit 3 together. So I copied and pasted and sent it off to my tech editor. And I said, let's add this to the pattern. So there was an update this week. There was not an error in the pattern, but I did update it to add that video for people because I thought during the knit along, there may be people who are like, not only do I have to learn how to do this new cast on and figure out what that's all about, and then now I also have to figure out how to do this star flower stitch that doesn't have a, video. So I thought, oh, let's make it easier for folks. Does anybody have any questions? I don't know if I heard from everybody about what they're knitting either, so chime in.
Cori, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
So I'm thinking about doing the pump up the plaid pillow and then later doing the blanket to match. But I was just wondering how you think it would turn out if I felted it.
Oh, it would turn out great. I had a friend do some weaving on a project back in the day and she felted it. It's just not, it's not a big blanket and it's not a big pillow. So even the bigger, there are 2 sizes, the bigger one is not that big. So you will get a much smaller piece if you felt it. Are you just wanting to felt the pillow first to just kind of see?
Well, I was gonna do the pillow sort of as a gauge swatch for the blanket, but I think if I were gonna felt it, I would just double the size that I was making.
Sure. Yeah, it won't shrink evenly, and I don't know that all of the weaving will hook in, will like felt as evenly. I would love to see you try though. Just because the weaving, it will really depend on how rustic your yarn is.
Okay. Well, I was thinking.
Have you felt it a lot?
I felt it a fair number of things. I get pretty good results with the brown sheep.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say, because like I wouldn't use a cream or a white because it's so processed, right? So they don't felt well. They can, but if you're gonna go to that much work into this kind of a project, I don't know that I would use a cream or a white. And then I would just use a really rustic yarn for the, if you felt it, as opposed to kind of meeting it in the middle and picking something soft because it was going to be a blanket, right? Like I did get that question from people. They were like, oh, well, I really wanted to use something soft. And I said, well, you're going to get a very drapey blanket, but then it's also not going to look as taut and pristine. No, I would love to see that. I mean, I taught felting classes for years back in the day. I felted everything I touched.
Wow.
I just was like, oh, let's felt it. And I had a couple of fails, a couple of things that just, I washed and dried and agitated and just couldn't get it to felt at all the way I wanted. But I think it would be really fun to see that. I just had a gal in my knitting group finish her entire blanket and come up like 2 strands short of the yellow on the last weaving in. And she didn't want to buy, so she was just going to use something else. She's like, I don't, it's the last edge. But she said at knitting, I wondered if you don't have leftovers. And I'm like, do I have leftovers? So here, look, I'll show you. It's right here. I just brought it in. I took her, I said, I have leftovers of that color in all the weights. All brown sheep, and I have it in worsted and sport. And so I took her this bag and she came back and she's like, it's not going to look like I took anything out of there because I only needed 2 pieces to, to finish out the, Janet, that was Hilka, and she's, she knit the blanket and then just ran out the very end. And it is when you tie your knots at the end with your fringe on the edges of the blanket and the pillow, if you make that fringe super long and then trim it, you're going to use more yarn, right? Because you have to trim all that fringe edge. And so if you, and I just used so much on each end and trimmed it up. But if you leave those longer, some of those longer, you certainly could get to the point where you might not have enough yarn. So I was glad I could help because right now I can see 4 bags of brown sheets in various colors over there on the floor because I'm going to knit the Knitwords pillow in a smaller size because the Knitwords pillow is big. And so I'm going to knit it in a smaller size and just put one word on each side going around. I'm going to try that and see that if I can't do a smaller option for people who are more new to color work and are worried about taking on some of those bigger projects. And then I might turn them into smaller as well. So it wouldn't be quite such a big project to take on. Anybody else have questions or comments? Want to tell me about what you're working on? I don't think I said hi to you, Marlene.
Hi, how are you, Cori?
I'm good. I'm good today. I woke up hurting all over and I just sprayed my body with icy hot.
No. Oh. I'm trying to decide which of the socks to start. I can't decide whether I want to do the Anjou or the Concord.
Okay. Well, you could join 3 other people here on the Concord.
I see that.
Have a little
passed on the Anjou.
I want to use
well, then you have
candy shops.
That you could do the Anjou. Yeah. You know, I wrote those for really simple stitch patterns with that modified Dutch heel. You can do any heel you want. But I just tried to write really simple texture stitch patterns for that whole collection so that it would be accessible in both weights of yarn. I should ask you guys, those of you that are making the Concord and the Anjou, are you doing it in fingering or in the DK version?
I'm doing fingering.
I'm doing DK.
Fingering. Oh, Marlene's going to do DK. Yep.
I've got DK. It's my first DK socks.
Oh, okay. You'll be surprised. They go quite quickly compared to
the cuff's
fingering.
done.
I know. It's just shocking how I know some people don't want to feel like the DK is too thick and then it doesn't fit in their shoes or whatever. I don't have a problem with it. I can wear my DK weight socks with several pairs of my shoes. But if you make them too loose and then it's got that texture and your shoes are tight, you're gonna have, you can have a problem getting it in your shoe because some people call them boot socks. But
I'm going to use them for my round the house socks.
Yes. Yep. Perfect. Is anybody using a tweed?
I am.
Okay.
I'm using Suburban Stitcher.
Mine is candy shop yarns.
Oh, okay.
I just can't figure out which color. Yeah, they're pretty.
Oh,
those are lovely.
I know, but I can't.
Do not tell me where you bought that.
Candy shop yarns.
I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
How are you going to do the colors on there?
I haven't decided. I thought about doing stripes. Just go
really
for
pretty.
So many rows and stripe, but purple and blues are my favorite colors. So I may just go ahead and do a set complete purple and blue.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
You said you're using tweed too?
Who?
Diane, you said you
Yes, I'm using Suburban Stitcher.
We have 2 Dianes, 2 N's.
Yeah, Suburban Stitcher's yarn.
Oh, okay. Gosh, she had beautiful colorways. Just
I got.
Ooh.
Nice. Oh, you bought a lot. Good for you. Yeah, they really do wear well with that little bit of tweed in them. Gives them some nylon. It really does. They wear really well. Who haven't I talked to today? Who doesn't? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm chose to knit the Anjou socks.
Okay.
I've knit 2 of the other pair socks already. So, and I'm using.
Oh, that's impressive.
I know. I did too, and I won one of your prizes in that Knitalong. So.
Oh gosh, I got great prizes for this Knitalong already, and I have another person sending another prize.
Oh wow!
Nice.
Yeah, people are being very generous. It's really nice. So
yeah, It was great. No, they've gone together great. They're just a little bit of interest, a little bit of texture. So yeah, I'm doing the Anjou now with some Perfects. And this is sentimental yarn to me. My husband was on a work trip and had just a few minutes and popped in a store and got this for me. And I thought he did pretty well. It's purples and blues.
Yeah, that's pretty.
So it's kind of a low contrast self-striping. So I think it'll show the pattern fine. And, and if I get a second project done, I want to make the Mr. Tom's Field socks.
Those are so not loved on Ravelry.
You know,
my first sock, maybe my second sock pattern, and it just went nowhere. No one bought it. No one made it. and finally I reached out to a couple friends and I said, will you knit this just so that a few projects on Ravelry? Because it is just a simple, you know, I have fond memories of that sock because Mr. Tom's Field was next door to my house across the street. And we thought he was a scary old man, and we would sneak over into that big field of grass, and my dad would mow a ball diamond, and we would play ball and we'd play wiffle ball in that. And so I made the diamond on the socks, you know. And so for me, it evokes this childhood memory of when children were children, when I was little, where you could go outside, come home till the end of the day, and your mother really had no idea where you were, right? And we would just go, we would play in that field, and all the neighborhood kids got along, and everybody played, and we would just be out from morning till night, and we'd set up bases and, you know, run around in that field next door. And so those socks just got no love. They just sat there, and they just don't have very many projects, and it's not a bad pattern.
No, I remember you saying that in the podcast. So I've had the pattern a while and thought I should knit those up.
Thank you for giving that one a little bit of love. You know, you never know when you put a pattern out if people are gonna like it or not like it. Like I just am. It's always a surprise to me how many sales I get on certain patterns, and some, you know, none or more on the others. So thank you.
Hopefully I'll get to it. That's my plan. So.
All right, who else? Who hasn't chimed in or has a question or comment? Wants to tell us what they're knitting?
You said you're not a big fan of purling?
No, I don't mind it, but I hear all the time. I hear people say, I hate purling. I hate purling.
Well, I was gonna say, because anybody who hates purling, I will show you how I purl, which is different than most people purl. And I learned it from my mom. And I've only known like one other, like I've taught a couple people to do it that way. And it's like knitting from the other side.
So do you leave your yarn in the back?
No. Hold on. Well, let's see if I can do this. Okay. So if I was going to purl this.
Can't see it.
See how it's caught on my thumb? It stays front.
Yeah.
And all I'm doing is moving my thumb to the side.
So you hold your yarn in your left hand. So you're a continental knitter.
Yep.
So that doesn't work for people who throw.
Right.
And mostly I think the bigger arm movement for purling for people who throw is where they have the issue, right? And for people who knit continental, learning how to knit continental is easy peasy. Learning how to purl continental is more of a challenge because you have to have more manipulation of that thread. It takes more thread.
Right.
And so, but I do think that what you're doing is not quite, but similar to that Norwegian purl.
It's it's similar.
But you're using your
except
thumb.
it's taking out, right. I'm using my thumb on my left hand instead of coming in and using the back side.
Yeah.
And by doing that, my tensions are identical. Knit and purl are identical. And I think it's because the amount of yarn movement is very similar.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Amy Beth always talks about hating to purl. If you know Amy Beth of the Fat Squirrel Speaks,
Speaks.
her podcast, you know, she'll do anything to not purl around. She researched and figured out how to turn around halfway and go back the other direction on those hats. I don't know if you guys have been watching for a while, but yeah, she'll just do anything. And I just think it's still the same 4 steps, right? But I think everyone learns to knit first. Very few people that I've ever met learned the purl stitch first. And I think you practice that knit stitch and you get good at it. And then it throws you for a loop when you have to learn the purl, right? After that. And so it's still exactly 4 steps, right? I teach in through the front door, run around the back, out through the window, and off jump Jack. And then on the other side, I teach under the fence, grab the sheep, out the gate, off we leave. Still 4 steps, right? And so there's very little difference of movement. You just have to bring the yarn to the front, but I do think people think it slows them down. And if they didn't have to purl, they can go faster. They can get things done faster because they take a bigger movement when they have it in their right hand.
And I would say the way that I do it is probably a cross between Norwegian purling and Portuguese purling, because I noticed I've tried Portuguese and my thumb movement is identical to that.
You just don't have the yarn around.
I just don't, yeah, I'm just tensioning with my pinky and through my hand instead of around my neck.
Yeah.
Hey, Cori, when you teach people how to knit in the very beginning, which way do you teach them? Do you teach continental or do you teach? What makes you decide which way? You do?
Teach them how to throw with their yarn in the right hand. Yep.
Is that because it's easier to start out with?
I have found, I don't know everything, but I have found that knitters' tension is better when they learn how to throw their yarn at the beginning of their knitting journey. It's easier to have better tension with their yarn in their right hand because a majority of those people are right-handed. So I will have people who come in who have who already know how to crochet, and they will oftentimes try to hold the yarn in the other hand because they hold their crochet hook in the right and the yarn in the left. So I'll know right away if a crocheter got their yarn in their left hand, I'll be like, okay. But they will sometimes wrap the yarn the opposite direction, so that gets to be a little tricky. But yeah, no, I teach throwing. It's how I learned. And if someone's a lefty and they are constantly putting the yarn into their left hand, you know, like Matt in our knitting group, he said, Cori, never teach someone how to knit the way I knit with their left hand dominant. And I'm a lefty. You know, he reverses everything. Matt knits the opposite direction. Every stitch is the opposite. He has to rewrite every pattern to go the opposite direction. And, you know, and he just said, I would never send someone on that journey. It's doable, but he's, you know, and knitting can really be two-handed. If you're knitting with your yarn on the right and you are left-handed, you can manipulate your left needle to do more of the work. You don't have to, you know, use the right as your dominant. It's a two-handed technique. So I try really hard. I almost always have a lefty. Every year I have someone who comes in that's a lefty and they say, you're not going to be able to teach me. People have tried to teach me and I'm a lefty. And I say, challenge accepted. Right? So yeah, I do teach. And you have to be really willing to stick to it and practice and to get, you know, you have to really want to be a knitter, I think. People who come to class and they haven't done their homework from one week to the next and they haven't finished their project, they just don't have that sense of fulfillment. And that can take, you know, that can make all the difference in the world if people are really motivated to. This week at knitting, though, I had 2 people with holes in their knitting and we're making things in the round and they're big hole. And I look at it and I know exactly what they have done. And no matter how many times I say, when you pick up your knitting, the yarn is on the right. They have flipped their knitting inside out they pick up their knitting, the yarn is on the left, they know it should be on the right, so they slip the stitch over to the right
Oh.
and go back in the opposite direction. And then the inside became, the right side became the outside that they're looking at. And so all of their stitches in this cowl pattern, it's not ribbed. In the hat, it doesn't matter because then we can flip it back. But they have a, and I can see it every time, and I explain it. I lay it down wrong in front of them before they go home, and I say, okay, pick it up and tell me how you're going to start knitting when you get home. And they still, 2 of them out of 12, picked up their knitting and went back the wrong way. And then they get that hole when they come around. It's, you know, it's very obvious. I mean, you can stitch it shut. It's not a big deal, but, and they're so embarrassed and they're frustrated that they did it wrong. You know, women can be so hard on themselves. We want to be really good at everything right away. We are not very kind in our brain. I see it happen right in class. Kids are such good learners because they learn every day, right? They're learning something new every day. And so they're just like, well, whatever, I didn't do it right. You know, they're just, and as we get older and older, we're all over our brains to do better, be perfect the first time. Oh, does this one look right? Does this one look right? Does this, I mean, they're just, is it tight enough? It's, you know, and I'm just like, oh, let's just be gentle with ourselves. Let's be kind. Do you expect it to be perfect? Like, you've been doing this for 4 minutes and you want it to be perfect already, you know? Shoot, I ripped out this weekend. We had Shepherd's Harvest here and I had friends here. Matt ripped out a whole top of his sweater. If you follow Matt, my friend Matt on Instagram, he copied off his chart. He printed his chart in black and white, and the decreases were not black on the top. Ooh. On the 2 of the rows. They were, and they didn't show. And so he's knitting a color work sweater, and it didn't decrease. It had every other decrease was not there. So it stayed wide. Oh. And he got a ton of knitting done before he realized that it was not getting small enough, and then figured out that the pattern chart did not. And so Stacy and I and Amber sat there because he had 3 colors in 2 of the rows, and I ripped it out and put it back. I picked up all the way around, and then we ripped back to the needle. You know, and Matt's an amazing knitter. I mean, just an amazing knitter. And I designed this, and my stitch count was off on my flower row, and I had to rip it back this weekend. And I was like, you know, it is what it is. Everybody makes mistakes all the time, right? I think if you're going to be a good knitter, you have to be a good ripper. You have to just be willing to be like, you know, I had company, we were talking, we were chatterboxing, and I got off across the row and I was like, my flower stitches didn't come out right at the other end. And sure enough, I had, you know, made a mistake, didn't add my increase. And so it didn't turn out right. And yeah, so I just ripped back the row. But
yeah, I had to rip out one of the flower rows too, Cori. I got to the end, and in the very beginning, I'd done a yarn over instead of a knit one in between 2. So then I had an extra stitch at the end, and I'm like, shoot. But I wasn't, it was like the 2nd flower row or whatever. So I did rip back, fixed it.
Yeah, and you know, there's stuff you can fix on the needle, and then there's stuff you can't. Like it's gonna, you know, going to be off. So I had to rip my own, and that is not the first time that I've had to rip my own design back and, you know, and fix it, but whatever. Just, yeah.
But you're right. It's never regret ripping back. I'm doing a all cable sweater, cable and lace, and I picked the wrong cable. So I twisted it the wrong way and didn't notice it for like 20 rows. And so I went on YouTube and I saw Roxanne Richardson. She shows you how to fix a cable.
Yep.
And I was able to just rip back that, and I redid it, and much better. I'm happy.
Yes. She's got amazing videos. Really nice videos.
I think I've used one of her videos to fix a cable as well. And one thing I'm not like, I like if I tried to fix a cable and it didn't work. So then I ended up just ripping back that section, but I'm always willing to try to fix that cable first and see if I can fix it without going all the way back. But she has good videos.
I think I would have cried if I had to rip all 20 rows out because it's lace and she's got all kinds of patterns. I'm doing a Hohi pattern and it's the All the Lights sweater. It's got multiple cables, lace. I would have cried if I couldn't have fixed it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, I always regret the fact that I have to rip, but I never, once I get it ripped out. And that's what I said to Matt this weekend. And he's like, no, I'm mad at it. I'm setting it aside. And I said, give it to us. Because when you get home and it's all ripped out and the needle's in the right place, it will be no big deal for you to pick it up and keep going, right? But if you go home and you have to rip it out yourself, you'll just be like, I cannot believe I'm ripping out all these rows. I've had more people rip back rows for me at knitting group because it's just such a nice gesture. Like, say, here, would someone rip this out for me? Because then I just won't be quite so frustrated with me. I just did this last night, and I ripped the sleeve back off because you were supposed to bind off right after the split for the arm, right? It was just a little shell, kind of what I would call a cap sleeve. So I did that, and I did my little my little reverse stockinette here, and I tried it on, and they both looked like I had on a Star Trek thing, right? Like they were straight out from my arms, and I don't love my arms these days, my 61-year-old arms, and I was like, oh, you are not going to wear that. You're done. You're done. You want to move on, but you were just not going to wear that as much as if you would go in and decrease a little, make a little sleeve, and then bind it off. It took me 2 nights. I bound it off it or ripped it out and stuck a needle in both edges one night, and then the next night I picked it up and decreased it. I'm so much happier, just so much happier that I did it. And this was some of the oldest yarn in my stash. That's one of my things that I like to do. I have stash that is well aged, like a good cheese. And I like to look and see what the oldest stash I have is and see if I can't make something out of that. And that was this. And this was a Sirdar cotton tweed. And it literally looked red and white in the skein. I don't have the skeins in here. It looked red twisted with white. And when it knit up, it looks pink in real life. It is such a visual, one of those things. I was just shocked as I knit it. I was like, it really turned out to look pink, but up close the yarn was red and white. So now I looked at what the next oldest yarn I have in my stash is, and it's this yellow, kind of thick and thin. And I was like, oh, I know that yarn. It was like a blend. I can't find it. I cannot find it in my yarn club. I looked and looked and looked, and I don't think I knit it. I don't think I knit it up into anything. I remember what the yarn is. I do not know. And I have all the yarns in this closet. Here, can I do this? I've never done this before, but there's my closet. From the top all the way to the bottom. And I have it in, they're in like shoe boxes. And then on the end, it says what the yarn is and how much there is in it. And so those in this closet are in alphabetical order by yarn. Because when we moved into this house, when I moved from Virginia, I had put office on those boxes, and the boxes just kept coming. And this room got filled up with boxes of yarn and office stuff. And so at the time, I said to my daughter, Kylie, who was 8, I said, before I unload those boxes, we're going to organize. I'm going to go buy some type of shoe box and get them put in there. Now the new stuff that I buy is going into 2-gallon Ziploc bags that just can lay flat, because that seems to be a little, so the new stuff is in a different order. So I should be able to find that yellow yarn because it's old. It should be in a shoebox. So I should be able to just look right where it is. And it's not there. That is so surprising that Jadifra satata is it's called. I have looked and looked and looked. So I'm gonna have to figure out where that yarn went because it's my oldest. Maybe I gave it away. Maybe I gave it to someone. Interesting. Do you guys know where all your stash is and what you have? Like, do you have a
I know where it is because it's everywhere.
Well, my husband and I just moved because we're now empty nesters. So we just moved like 10 days ago. And so about 2 months ago, I had to pack up all of my crafting stuff and put it in storage. And so I just got it out. And he told me, okay, you get this one bedroom. It's the smallest of our spare bedrooms. If your crafting stuff doesn't fit in there, you have too much. I'm like, yeah. So I've been organizing it. So I have all of my yarn in one room now.
Wow.
Such a good feeling. I was so glad I took the time at the time to, when I had everything out from the previous house, you know, I get it. But it's a big job.
Yeah.
Right? It's a big job to like kind of go through it all and organize it. And the new bins, I put the giant bags of yarn here. I'll grab one. So here's a 2-gallon Ziploc, right? So there are 5 skeins in here to make a sweater. It's fingering, and these really are thin, right? Like they're super thin. So they slip into those clear Sterilite boxes from Target or you know, Walmart or whatever, and they can just stand up if you have enough. So I'm liking this plan a little bit better. So I have 4 Sterilite boxes in the out closet outside of the office and 2 in here. And then I put on the end, and all of you who know me, there's one that says orange, there's one that says raspberry, and there's one that says blue, green, purple, and then there's one that says multicolored. So that I'm liking this concept a little better. It feels like maybe it won't take up quite so much room as I don't know, the shoe boxes worked for a long time, but I had a lot invested in shoe boxes too, those clear plastic shoe boxes, right? I'd go get them on sale and then I'd say, we need 15 more. So this is a little more cost efficient to maybe do it this way. So I'm going to see.
I'm going to make you all feel better. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Feel better.
So this is my studio space, right?
Wow.
Oh. Okay, so we're gonna go back behind the long arm. There are 20 64-gallon totes of yarn right there.
Wow.
The other side is 20 64-gallon totes of yarn. Underneath the long arm, more yarn and fabric. And then here's my hallway. And what do we have here?
There we go.
Yarn.
You.
I do feel, thank you.
And then I have in a spare bedroom, I have 6 giant, I mean, when I say giant, like 4 by 3 by 2 bags full of fleece to spin, and a closet full of, you guessed it, yarn. And underneath my bed has the flat totes, and it has 10 of them full of yarn.
You are going to have such a happy retirement, right? You're just going to be able to, like, you know, bring it on retirement. Just sit and knit and shop your own stash.
Yeah. So the reason for, okay, so no, not the whole reason, but I come by it naturally because my mom has a yarn shop.
Oh.
So you You have a long arm machine. Do you have like, are you a quilter then? Do you have like a fabric stash as well?
Oh yeah, behind those totes that were underneath the long arm, there's fabric from one end of the machine to the other on both the front and the back. So I do long arm. I long arm a little bit for customers still, but my day job is designing patterns and formatting patterns for digital or computerized quilting machines and embroidery.
Oh, fun.
Wow.
Well, I'm gonna leave. I need to head out and take my dog to kennel. So
No problem. We're gonna say goodbye here too. I'm
Okay.
just so glad that everyone could join today, and I'm just thrilled that we're having a little knit along together.
Yeah.
Chance to chat. So next Friday at 4 p.m. I will set up another Zoom call, and then I'm going to be gone. That's the next weekend is Memorial Day weekend, and so I'm going to figure out if I'm going to do an Instagram live so that people can come on an Instagram for people that don't Zoom, or if I'm going to try a YouTube live, I might try that. I will be out of town up north, and so we don't have a good connection. I have done it there. I have done a live there before for the splash pad party, but I did want to mention that if you're doing this knit along and you want to double dip, you can join the splash pad party on Ravelry. That's Jen, Boston Jen of Down Cellar Studios. She has a podcast, mostly an audio podcast, but she does do some video. So you can go over to her group and you can post your finished objects from here over there and from there over here. So you can double dip for prizes because she has tons of prizes. I'm a sponsor over there. So I have offered up some prizes to her, and that goes all summer, her splash pad party. So if you're not aware that you can go over there and join her group. And there's a thread where you can read all about, they have different prompts each month, and they have, you get extra points if you use a sponsor's yarn or bags or patterns or whatever. So you can get double dipping and triple dipping, and so that's an all summer knit along. But feel free to double dip, on mine so that you post in both places for prizes, because if you're going to be knitting stuff, you may as well have a chance to win all the prizes. And I don't know, there's also a sock knit along going on from the Crazy Sock Lady. And I'm going to assume that she would allow double dipping too for those of you that are doing socks. So you could go and join the Crazy Sock Ladies knit along. I haven't watched her most recent stuff to see that. Most people don't have an exclusive knit along. They usually, if you're making them, they don't care if you're posting in their group. So that would be 3 places that you could actually post. All right, I am going to go tackle a saddled shouldered striped cardigan that me fit. It's a Knit Picks pattern. It's called Lansbury. Go out and look at it. It's the most challenging thing I've knit in a couple years. I just could not figure out what I was supposed to be doing. I'm doing short rows here in the front, and then around the shoulder, and then across the back, and I couldn't picture it. Like I didn't know where I was going from the instructions, and there was no good picture. And so I asked a friend this weekend to kind of muddle, Stacy, my sample knitter, and she's like, "We're gonna get this." And yeah, it's striped. So you do these 2 little squares up here and like 5 stripes. So then you have 10 ends hanging there. And then you have to pick up around the square and cast on across the back. And then you do another square over here and pick up and cast on. And then these short rows started, and I just couldn't figure out where I was supposed to be heading. I had 8 stitch markers on, and they were supposed to be numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, but I had 8 because that's what she said. I don't know, just couldn't get it. But we got it. We got it figured out. We figured out that the short rows were right here, which seemed seemed like a weird place to have short rows. So I'm going to go tackle that this afternoon, because in the evenings when I sit down and I look at it, I get a little cross-eyed. Then I go have a little chocolate, and then I get a little cross-eyed, and then I go have a little more chocolate, and then I never get any of the knitting on that sweater done.
Is it just by chance, is it a set-in sleeve?
No, it's a saddled shoulder.
Saddled shoulder. Okay.
All right. It looks kind of like a raglan. Once you get it set up, it kind of looks like a raglan, but because it's striped, she fills in the space right here with brown so that you can get the stripes to line up. And I've just never seen a striped saddle-shouldered construction with short rows in these places before. I love that I'm going to learn something new. I'm just, yeah, it's that, what is her name? Alice Yao, Y-E-O-H, is that her last name? Yeah. Anyway, it looks like a top-down striped raglan. I bought the yarn. I thought this will be great. And then I read the pattern and I was like, I don't know what she's doing. I haven't figured out where I'm supposed to go. So I'm going to work on that this afternoon and take the dog to the dog park. So thank you all for joining me. Does anyone else have any questions or anything else they need from me, like about their pattern or what pattern to choose or what yarn to use or anything like that? I just don't want people to go away and say, oh, I wanted to ask her this, but I didn't. All right, well then I will see you guys possibly on the podcast on the 23rd and on the Zoom next Friday, and we'll see how far we've gotten. Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
It was very nice.
Good.